welcome back to my channel. So I've been wanting to do another Q&A for a while now, and so recently on my community tab I asked you guys what kind of Disney questions you had if I were to do a Q&A. I've gotten a ton of different questions I've noticed on all of my videos asking me about specific heights for performer roles, so I knew I was going to cover that. And then someone also had recently asked a question about accents, and I thought that'd be good to cover, but I didn't want the Q&A just to cover those two things, so I asked you guys what you guys had questions about, and you guys had a ton of different questions, so I'm going to go through as many as I possibly can without this video being like an hour long. So bear with me, it's going to be a longer one. Maybe if you are, doing your makeup, or if you're in the car and you're just needed to listen to something for a while, this will be a great video for that. So without further ado, let's just jump into your guys' questions. So I have all of them pulled up here on my phone, and the first one is from Katya. First of all, huge shout out to Katya. She always comments the nicest things on my channel. There's her, and then there's also Kendra and Lara. Literally, there's not a single video I think they've ever missed. They've commented on all my videos, and they always have the nicest things to say. So thank you guys so much for being so sweet. Like, I really appreciate it. I actually look forward to your guys' comments. They really do make my day. So this is from Katya, and she says, do Disney characters know all the trivia about themselves? Like, if you ask Arielle about Melody, would she answer, or does she only knows things from her first movie? So here's how I would answer this question. In case, there's been a couple different times where people have commented on my videos asking a very specific question, like, oh, would Arielle know about her friend Urchin from the series? And I don't think the characters would necessarily bring those characters up on their own. I think they would probably acknowledge it if you brought it up. I just don't think that they would naturally bring it up on their own, if that makes sense. However, if you ask them questions about it, I'm sure they would acknowledge it. I don't know if they would go into great detail about it. They might, they may not. I can't guarantee that, but they might acknowledge it. She also asks, if you had to choose two other Disney character roles, what would they be? Anyway, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you have a wonderful week. See, she's just so nice. Two other roles, what I would do. I think a character that would have a lot of fun is any of the villain roles. I think would be really cool, to be honest, just because they're so different. The villain roles are just so unpredicted, and I think they can be really, really funny. Like, if you go and meet Gaston, it's so much fun, and same with the stepsisters, it's so funny. So I think if I had to choose another role, I think I would do something in that realm. Also, you don't get to choose, I think someone asked it later on, but you don't get to choose what role you do, even if you show up for an audition and they say what roles they're looking to fill. The one that I was selected for was not listed on the website, even though they had 7 roles listed, mine wasn't. So you really have no say in what role you get to do. But if I were to choose, I think it'd be really, really fun to be a villain type role. I like this question a lot. This is from Darcy Disaster. She says, some villains died in the movies. How are they gonna respond if someone asks them why they're alive again? That's a really good question, and something I kind of want to point out because I was thinking about this. They don't necessarily die. You think they die, but it's never said that they die, except for with the exception I'm thinking of right now in Little Mermaid 2, Morgana mentions that they killed Ursula, but they don't necessarily die. You see them as adults, we think, oh, they died, and the kids, they think, oh, they died, but what you do is you see a lot of those villains falling or disappearing. You don't see them dying. So they would acknowledge that the villains are still around. During Halloween time, you do see the villains come out. So the villains are still around. So even though they died in the movies, or we think they died, doesn't mean that they died in the terms of Disneyland or Disney World, if that makes sense. Bailey Van Wagner asks, did you ever have to deal with any non-believer kids while you were working, or know anyone has this experience? I'm super curious to know what you would have to do. That would be probably my biggest fear of working as a performer. So yes, that would happen every once in a while. What you could do is either kind of redirect them, you could make them try to make them believe in it, or what I like to do if I was performing is I would kind of just redirect the conversation. Mainly because even if they don't necessarily believe in it, the family behind them probably does, or they could have kids that do. So, and even on my channel, it's very evident that most of you guys kind of know what's up, but for the sake of preserving the magic, for the sake of preserving the magic, I still won't break character integrity when talking about my roles and stuff like that. And that's not because I don't really care that the kid doesn't. It's more of like, I don't want that kid to ruin it for the family behind them, because they could have members that do believe in it, and I want to keep the magic alive for everyone. So this is one of the accent questions I got. This is from Catherine Pinnell. Do you have to be able to speak in a certain accent already, or is that something they'll help you with after they hire you? And I also had someone ask this question too in regards to if they didn't have an American accent, but a role would require them to have an American accent, how does that work? So I also don't really talk a lot about my trainings, again, to preserve character integrity, but there is a separate training day that they'll have you do if you either need to help correct an accent that you came on board with. Like, let's just say you have a Scottish accent and the role that you're in has an American accent, you can go to the training for that. Or if you are in a role that has, let's just say, like a British accent and you don't have a British accent, you will also have that training to help you learn how to do that accent too. So they will cover that if it's necessary. I never had to do that, but I know I had friends that had to do that and had to learn how to do that. So if you are concerned about having an accent or not having an accent when it comes to a certain role, don't worry about that. They will help you with that when it comes to training. Sam Emmons asks, how many roles do a certain performer have? And that really depends. I don't really think there's a rhyme or reason. I had one face role. I think that's really what he's getting after, is how many face roles you would have. I had one. I had a friend that came in with 3. I had a friend that had one for 5, 6, 7 years. I know other people, I think I count one time, that had like 8 or 9. So I don't think there's any sort of rhyme or reason when it comes to, oh, they're coming in with multiple, they're coming in with 1, they're coming in with, they have one for several years. I think it's all over the board. It really depends. When it comes to your fur roles, that really depends on your height. My role opportunities were limited because of my height. To answer your question, there's no rhyme or reason to how many people, like how many roles a certain performer will have. That's Emily asks, I know that this question is not this related, but how are you? I think she meant to say, how old are you? She says, I feel like a lot of people often lie about it. Me too. I'm 24. I have to think about that. I'm like, how old am I again? I'm 24. I turned 25 in May. My birthday is May 12th. I'm 24. And then when I was working for Disney, I was 22 and turned 23 when I was working for Disney. So I was basically 22 when I was working for Disney, and I am 24 now. Carolyn Grace Marie asks, is there a certain place where all the character cast members hang out? There's that old image of a restaurant where the character members are eating lunch in costume. Is there anything like that today? Love your vids. No, and I think that photo was kind of like fabricated, or maybe the rules are just way more lax. There isn't really a place. There's break rooms nearby when you are working as a performer or as a character attendant. There's always gonna be, or honestly any other role is going to have a break room designated for them. I don't think a lot of the break rooms intermingle. Like, I don't think I would have been able to go into a break room for someone if they were in merchandise or if they were in attractions. I don't think I'd be able to walk in. I know that like our break rooms were separate from other people's break rooms too, but there is a cafeteria and the food's pretty good. The fries were amazing, and in the cafeteria everyone just kind of hangs out and mingles. People kind of keep to their own little groups, I've noticed, but I don't think that's like cliquey or that they mean to. I think just because like that's who their friends are, because they work with them. Like, I wouldn't just go sit down at a table with people I've never met before that were in a completely different role than me. And that wasn't because like people were cliquey, it was just because like I didn't know them and I genuinely would sit with my friends. Kind of like in high school, like where you would sit with your friends, you wouldn't just go sit with someone like in a different grade than you that you've never met before. Very similar to that. So there is a cafeteria. And there are break rooms too that performers and entertainment roles will hang out in together. It's not just like performers, character attendants, photo pass, it's like all of them together will be in the same break room. This is another really good question. Snow Leopard asks, I'd like to know, is it possible to work at Disney without working on Sundays? I really enjoy your videos. Thanks for making them. Thank you. That's a really good question. Yeah, so if you're in the Disney College program, unfortunately you don't get to pick your schedule at all. You can either give away shifts or you could trade shifts with someone if you want to get Sundays off. And if you are a full-time performer, you get first pick, but you are behind. It's a seniority ranking, so like even though I was a full-time performer, I got to pick my shifts before people who came after me, but there was a lot of people that came before me that were full-time performers that got to pick. It is possible to pick your schedule, just the chances of you getting what you really want are less likely if you haven't been there for very long or if you're in a part-time seasonal or Disney College program role. So I just realized I went back and looked and I actually did not answer Sam Ammon's question correctly. What they asked was how many cast members are friends with a specific character, not how many roles a performer will have. It's very confusing, but basically they're asking how many performers will share the same role. So that really depends too. That depends on how many performers will have multiple roles. I mean, there's performers like me that just had the one role, and there's performers who had like 3 or 4 roles. There's performers who are part-time, full-time, seasonal, Disney college program. So there's a ton of different options. I think there is maybe at one time, maybe 30 or 40 active in that one role. But again, they're not all active and just have that one role that they only do all the time. Sometimes they'll have that role, sometimes they'll do other roles. Again, don't quote me on this. I don't speak on behalf of Disney. That's just kind of what I noticed. Ashley C asks, how hard is it to get a job at Disney just for the summer? I remember looking into that when I was in college because that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to go work at Disneyland for the summer. I think you'd have to time it right and just really look at the auditions calendar and see when they're hiring for. I think they'll like say, we're hiring for a seasonal role, we're hiring starting at this month. I don't think they do it as much as they used to. I think most of the seasonal performers are performers who were full-time at one point. But I think you can be seasonal and work there in the summer, but I think you'd have to be a full-time performer first because I know that those spots are more coveted, and I think the people who are seasonal are cast members that were full-time at one point and then went to seasonal. I like this question. It's from Vanilla Twilight Chick, and she asks, if you could only pick one Disney snack to be your favorite, which would it be? Hello? Popcorn. I absolutely love popcorn. I have a hard time going to the park and not eating popcorn, even though now, like, as I've gotten older, the Disney popcorn to me is like a little too buttery. I hate saying that, but it is. I will like have the hardest time going there and not getting the popcorn. And it's not even that special, and it's not even like Mickey shaped or anything like that. I just love popcorn, so yeah, that would be it. Emma Blanc asks, if you're tall, 5'11", what options are there as a performer? I want to be one so badly, but always thought there wasn't a place for me because I'm way taller than the usual 5'4". So in response to the usual 5'4", that is not like the only height. There's a lot more heights for people than just 5'4". There's several different categories for performers and different height ranges. I'm actually in a weird height where I'm pretty restricted because I'm 5'4.5". It's literally like 5'4.5" to 5'4", like to 5'5", like in between there's like a little like dead height. But there are definitely roles for someone at your height. It might depend on what you're looking for specifically. If you're looking at a very specific like face role, I think it's a little bit more limited. I think there might be some villain opportunities if you're 5'11". If you're looking to be in the more princess type role, those roles are typically 5'4" to 5'7". But again, still a pretty big like 3-inch range there. Again, it's not a huge range, but it's big in terms of it's not like 1 inch, it's like 3 inches. But what I would do is I would just check the Disney auditions calendar. They list all of the different height ranges on there. And there are definitely roles for someone who is 5'11". It just might not be what exactly you're looking for, but there are roles for people who are 5'11". This is a fun question. Books, Journals, and Emily asks, what was your favorite and least favorite part about working at Disney? Okay, so I think favorite part, oh, this is really hard. Favorite part was when I was performing and working in a role when you walk around the corner or the guests can't see you yet and all of a sudden you walk around the corner and you're there and they see you for the first time and their eyes just light up and they get so excited. And honestly, my favorite part of that job is not like it is the most like dream job. It's not a real life job at all. It was very luxurious. Basically, you get told all day long like how loved you are and how wonderful you are, and you get hugs all day long. Like, that's probably why I didn't really struggle with anxiety a lot when I was there, because like I was just being uplifted like every single day in my job. It was so nice. So that was probably my favorite part of the job, is just being able to see the reactions of people's faces when you walk around the corner if you are performing. Even as a character attendant, like being able to work with the different characters and just seeing the guests interact with the characters all day long, it was so much fun. So I love that. As a character attendant, I love being able to walk around and just work with all these different types of characters, especially like like Tinkerbell, Tiana and Naveen. Those are some of my favorites just because they are just so funny, and the way that they'll vibe with each other is really funny. Tinkerbell is so super sassy. Yeah, I think just being able to see guests interact with the characters, that was probably one of the best things about working there. One of my least favorite things about working there, I don't really know. I mean, even when I did my like what I hate about Disney video wasn't, I mean, I don't really hate my job, so there's not really like I hated about it. I guess the least favorite thing about working there was just not being able to always have the same days off as like my friends, because basically it's like a retail job where you have like retail hours. So even though like most jobs you have the weekends off, if you go shopping on the weekends, there has to be someone there helping you. So I guess my least favorite thing is it's like that at Disney where there's always going to be people there. So there's always, you know, people working at really random hours, people working really early in the morning, there's people working late. Like I think my latest shift I got done at like 2 in the morning. So I guess just not always having consistency when it came to shift schedules, and then not always having like the same time off as my friends, that was kind of a bummer. I think I mentioned this in my other video, but like there was like a solid like month or so where my roommate worked like a normal morning shift and then I worked in the evening, so we didn't like see each other ever, and I was kind of lonely. So I think that'd have to be it. But yeah, it was a pretty nice job, not gonna lie. Lauren's Life asks, hi Kenzie, my question is, do you have to have an acting background to be a performer? And if not, how can you be/feel more confident with acting? So if you guys have not checked out my tips on how to prepare for a character audition, I would highly suggest you look at that. Basically I made that because I know a lot of you aren't at a point yet where you can start auditioning. Maybe you're too young to audition, but you want to know like what you can do now to help prepare. I talk a lot about different things you can do to help prepare for an audition, if it's like next month or if it's like 3 years from now. So go check that video out if you haven't already. She asked if you have to have acting background. Absolutely not. They don't test you on that. Even dancing background, you don't have to have a background per se. I think if you have the ability to move well, if you have the ability to act, and that's something that's innate within you, then that's fantastic. I don't think you have to have a background. Sometimes having a background though does help, because there'll be times where you're basically put on the spot. Being a performer is basically just a long round of improv and charades sometimes. So if you do have an experience doing that, that will really help you and prepare you to make sure you feel like more confident in that role and more confident at the audition. But I wouldn't say that you would need to like have a background to do that. Skylar Dupree asked, or what he's trying to get at is, did Ariel prefer to be a human or a mermaid? And he says, I'm sorry for the question with my character integrity, so I've adjusted it, don't worry. So if it were me, if I had the option to be a mermaid or a human, I'm a human all the time, so obviously I would 100% be a mermaid any day of the week. Why wouldn't you? But Ariel was a mermaid, and so she grew up as a mermaid her whole life, and she always wanted to be a human. So of course she's going to say that she would prefer being a human. Pretty sure she would say she'd prefer to be a human and on her human feet. So she would probably say that she'd prefer being a human, but for me, I would say I would much rather be a mermaid any day of the week. So I personally love this question. If some of you guys probably don't know this, I already graduated from college. I have a major in communications and I have a minor in diversity. So for me, I love this question and I could talk about it for hours, so I'm going to try not to. But a Nightmare Before Christmas asks, why does Disney cast people of a different race to characters of color? Example, white people as Jasmine or Pocahontas. For most of us, seeing the only Disney representation different to how they're supposed to look is disheartening. So for starters, I cannot answer this question on behalf of Disney. I have zero experience as a casting director, and I really can't talk about hiring. I know nothing about it, so I can't speak to it. But I totally agree. I think for me, it's upsetting too, seeing someone that has a role like that if their nationality isn't that how do I say this without breaking character integrity? You guys know what I'm saying. Especially because I know there's people at those auditions that match the nationality of that role. I know, for example, with Jasmine, she is lighter skinned. So I think they do try to find performers who are lighter skinned to match that. But even with Pocahontas, I mean, there are characters that are darker in skin, and I really wish that they, because there's already so many limited opportunities for people of color when it comes to performing anyway. anyways, I would agree, it's disheartening, it's disappointing when you see these characters that are considered to be of color and not having performers that match that. I completely agree. I don't know why that is the way it is. I'm not a casting director. I'm not sure what's going on there. But again, I don't know. I don't know who's auditioning. Maybe they're not getting a lot of people auditioning for those roles. I kind of doubt it, but maybe that's the case. I have no idea. I'll get the question sometimes is like talking about Disney and, you know, they're only having like white characters. I think they've done a wonderful job. I was just mentioning this to a coworker this last week of including more diverse characters just within the past decade. I mean, think about it. We have Mulan, we have Pocahontas, Jasmine, Tiana, Moana. We even have, I mean, if you want to talk about the Pixar movie that just came out. So we do have we're seeing more characters, diverse characters in comparison to how long Disney's, I don't even know how long Disney's been around. People are going to probably like yell at me for that. But if you think about like, okay, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, like all those types of movies, it's all just white characters. So with the fact that within the past decade, there's been so much improvement, I think that's really hopeful to see that. I know people kind of like are like, oh, like Disney hasn't really introduced a lot of characters. They have a lot in recent years, which I think is huge considering how long they've been around. If you see like the diverse characters they've introduced, it's all been within the past like decade or so, which is huge. I want to say they're making improvements, but I agree it's very disheartening to see this, and I hope they continue to make improvements in the future. Laura Brown, hey, we have the same last name, says, I'm going to California Disneyland for the first time in 2 months, but I have no idea how to where to meet the princes and princesses. Can you only meet some of them through dining? I really want to meet Aladdin and Jasmine. Lots of love from Australia. Well, that's really cool. You get to go there from Australia. I'm so excited for you. You're going to have amazing time. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I haven't been to Disneyland in a while. It's been about like 4 years. But when I was a kid, there was a little spot where you could meet Jasmine and Aladdin. They would tell their story. I think they still have that there. I don't really know how to explain it. It's over like by Adventureland, so you can meet them there, I believe. I'm not sure. I haven't been to Disneyland in a while. But there are spots where you can meet the different characters. They also roam around. If you don't know what roaming means, it basically means that they just kind of walk around. They don't have a set location where they meet. In Disney World, they've tried this, and if the characters were to roam, they would just get mobbed. But in Disneyland, for whatever reason, it seems to work better, so a lot of the characters will either roam around. So if you are just walking into the park, you can meet characters right there. You can meet also the princesses in Fairy Tale Hall, where you can meet 3 princesses at a time in that location. There's also a spot for Anna and Elsa. I believe that's still in California Adventure. When it comes to princes, they don't really have any princes, unfortunately. They have Aladdin, and then if you want to see them in the parades, you can see them in the parades. But even at Disney World, they don't really have the princes meeting a lot. I hope you get to meet Aladdin and Jasmine. I hope they're there, and I'm so excited for your trip. It's going to be so much fun, and I hope you have a wonderful time. Danielle Alexis asks, does meeting family after family get super repetitive? Do the performers ever find themselves saying the same things over and over? How do they make each experience different and special with each visitor? I think that really depends on each performer. I think for me, I had a set list of stories that I would go through, but I would also tailor to each guest. So if it was like a teenager, I would have like a different story with them, involving them and trying to make them feel special, because the things that like teenagers are going to talk about are different than kids. So it really just depends on the family and the group. It's something that if you do it for a while, like when I had been doing it for like 4 or 5 months, I was so comfortable with it. I think at first it was a little like nerve-wracking, and I think I probably was a little more repetitive in the beginning. But then when you do it for several months, you kind of get used to the different types and groups of people, and you kind of know how to interact with them. It gets easier with time to make things more special. You start thinking of more ideas, and then even talking to other performers and like sharing stories, it helps you be a little bit more creative too. Kenzie Lynn asks, do you have to be small-boned to hang out with certain roles? Are they flexible on heights for different characters or roles? I would just check back on the character auditions calendar, and there actually are a lot of different questions asking about very specific characters. I can't answer questions on specific characters, I just don't know off the top of my head. But if you are interested in a role, again, I would highly suggest you check out the Disney auditions calendar. I'll always point you back to the calendar, because that is where they'll post all of the different roles and what the heights have to be for each role. But what she asked about being small boned, when you're performing, when it comes to costuming, they do have a really, I would say, wide range of costume options. I say that hesitantly because in the past I made a video saying that and someone just was like, that's not a big range. It's a big range, meaning that it's just not like two sizes. I think they had like a 0 to a 16. I think those are the ranges, or 6 to a 14. I'm not sure. Again, don't quote me on it. I'm not sure. It was still like what, 0 to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 different, you know, roughly, there's 8 different sizes. So it's not just like you have to be a 0, 2, or 4 to work for Disney or be in this type of role. They have 8 different sizes. Someone did, you know, had this discussion before about like, you know, why can't Disney be more, like, have more opportunities for people of bigger sizes? Again, I can't speak on that. I don't know. I think it'd be great if they did, but to me, they do have a somewhat wide range because I always thought it was very, very restricted. So they actually had a wider range than I had previously thought going into it. So I don't think you have to be small boned. I think you just have to fit into some of the costuming pieces, and they do have a semi big range for that. I love this question too. Hannah Robertson asks, is it weird for the characters / in general if a teen or someone not a child wants to meet them? It's my first time to Disney and America, so I'm wondering if this is strange. No, absolutely not. I think that's just like the biggest stigma, and I even saw that when I was visiting as a guest. When I was a teenager to Disneyland, I would go meet some of the princesses, and I felt like it was just really uncomfortable. But then I met Arielle one time, and she like asked me to take a selfie or something like that, and she just made me feel so loved, and she made me feel less weird because like I still want to meet the characters like as an adult. Like that's something I still want to do, and I don't think it's weird at all. And even working there, I would see a lot of adults come to meet the characters without kids, and even as teenagers, and it's not weird at any age. I mean, there'd be times where I'd see like grown adults like in their 50s, 60s, like older adults start crying because they've wanted to meet these characters their entire life, but they haven't had the chance to. So honestly, there are no age limits or restrictions when it comes to meeting characters. Like, you go meet a character however old you are. It does not matter if you're not like a kid or anything like that. Like, it's totally fine. Maybe there's some, you know, performers out there who think it's weird. I don't think it's weird because it's pretty common. I think it might be weird if it was really uncommon, but it's so common. And like maybe every like 5 families there'd be like a couple adults without kids. So not weird at all, and I think you should totally do it. So there were 60 questions on here, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm definitely like losing steam right now, so I'm like trying to hang in there, but I think I only got a couple more that I could probably do. But Maddie and Ella ask, what year in college can you audition or try out for the college program? The way the program works is you do have to be at a college or university, and you have to have been like studying there for at least 1 semester. So you could audition your 2nd semester of freshman year, and then when the cutoff is you can still apply within, I think, 6 months of graduating. So after you've graduated your senior and you have like within the past like 6 months you've graduated, you can still apply or audition. Basically, when you start off as a freshman, you just have to wait your 1st semester, and then you can start applying. You don't have to be at a major university, you just have to be taking college courses. So it could be like at your local community college or like an online college. You just have to have proof that you're actually enrolled in a college and have been going there for a semester, but then after that you can start applying. So I think that is pretty much it. There are some questions I didn't answer, but they were kind of already covered. I try to cover as many or generalize them as much as possible, but if you asked a question I didn't cover it, I'm sorry. I try to be very general to try to reach all the questions. If there was something I missed and you really want me to answer it, just leave it down below in the questions or the comment section, and I will do my best to answer your questions, as long as again they maintain character integrity. It makes it a little bit easier for me to answer them. But yeah, I hope you guys liked this Q&A. I hope it was informative, and I hope you guys are even more excited about Disney than you were before. Thank you guys, I love you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!